All right. Welcome, fellow druids. I'm Chad, your host, as always. I actually am going to do a little bit of a unique video this time. I'm doing a lightning round. I toyed around with the idea of calling this the Kruger round, but we have lightning from other places. So anyway, what I did was I threw out there on the Full Circle group and in the Discord and said, hey, throw some questions my way, and I'll sort of lightning round style questions that I can answer somewhat quickly, and I'll churn through them. We may do this from time to time. I think it's a refreshing change on doing some stuff. I may post the next one like to a bigger audience, or maybe like after we see some CID stuff or after lock and load or whatever. I obviously mostly got circle related ones this time, but I'm not necessarily going to limit it to that by any means. Probably will limit it to mostly War Machine unless it's funny enough, and then I'll go for it anyways. So I'm just going to go through the questions that I got and try my best to throw an answer out there. These probably won't be super in depth, but if I end up rambling about one of them, then so be it. So first question I got was from, and if I mispronounce anybody's name, I apologize. It's from Indivol Heimdall, and they ask, who's our best caster, and why is it Baldur 2? And there's some follow-ups, so I'm just going to do all of them. Spencer G says, I believe you mean Kruger 2, and Will Thompson says, all I'm seeing is Morvana 2. So, who is our best caster, and why is it either Baldur 2, Kruger 2, or Morvana 2? Well, I don't currently think it's Morvana 2, although I think she has a lot of strength, especially if you're in an environment that lacks too much remove from play. I do believe it's entirely possible that it is Kruger 2, so apologies to Idavol, that I don't think our best caster is actually Baldur 2. I think it's close, and the biggest reason I don't think it's Baldur 2 is actually because I don't think he can play into hordes very well. Too much Wraithbane, and in like half of Menoth, you have the same problem. Too much Wraithbane out there that you just potentially can't rely on his feat or his spell, and I think if you don't, the Rockwall is really good, and I think if you're really good with Baldur, you can probably still play through some of those bad matchups, but in general, I think that you're bringing Baldur because Roots of the Earth is such a good spell, and Rockwall is such a good spell. And if those things can be circumvented easily enough, then I don't think he's a good drop. And that's aside from the fact that I think he's boring as sin. He's good. He's very technical, but he is, for me, boring. However, Kruger 2, to me, is the caster that... He has always been good. TK is an amazing spell. We can cast a lot of them. His Wolds can now do enough damage that you can include them, which means his spells are just so on fire. Rebuke is so good. His feat is so good. He can play for attrition. The only thing he really doesn't tend to do well is crack a significant amount of armor, and often you can even, circumvent that by just controlling the board correctly. There's a few times you can't. Additionally, depending on how much anti-magic hate ends up being out there, that could end up really putting a hamper on this list. And frankly, it might put a hamper on a lot of Bones lists, and I need to sort of think about that. But yeah, so it's possible Kruger 2 is our best caster. The real answer is I don't tend to, and I think this is going to come up again later, I don't really tend to like to go with this is unequivocally the best. I think Kruger might be the strongest right now. I'm not 100% sold on that, but based on what people in the community are seeing and what I've been playing myself, Kruger's very, very good. And he may be currently seeded to be the best. I don't like saying it definitively because I think in a few months that could easily change. And I also think that trying to think how I want to say this. I also think that as the meta changes, as our releases change, as people learn things, something else will step up. And frankly, the game is huge, and even like I played a lot of Circle, and there's plenty of stuff I haven't explored yet. So yeah, I want to leave room for those sorts of things. The next question comes from Chris Heinlein. who says, "What do you think is the most underrated model or unit in Circle and why?" I didn't really prep for any of these at a time, just to throw that out. Most underrated. This is a tough one, actually. I'm going to go with the Warwolf solo. And it's underrated because it's in a theme that doesn't really see a lot of attention because it's sort of hard to build and people aren't really focused on infantry and Circle right now. But when people do build Wild Hunt lists, I see them not including Warwolves in their list so often. And I suppose it's because they see this 2-point solo and they're like, I don't know what it does, I don't know why. And frankly, they are fantastic. If I was going to play that theme, the biggest reason I would play that theme is those models are so fun to play and they're actually very, very good. Any armor debuff means that you're getting a lot of POW, like charging POW 15s on models, and the longer you can keep them safe, the better they are. And now with them triggering off any Wolfsworn, they're incredibly strong. So anyways, that might be the most underrated unit. Honorable mention here to Shifting Stones that I think people undervalue right now. They're just very good. They're played. I just think they're a little bit undervalued. And do I have another one? Possibly the Blood River Knight, which is another honorable mention. I think she's very strong, and a lot of people sort of dismiss. I think seeing her on the table, you sort of see why they're better. Anyways, we'll leave it at that for that one. I may come back around to that. Wesley Findley asks, is it reasonable to insist on 3 forests on the table, or 2 forests on the table? No, it's not reasonable to insist on that. I don't think, and the reason being is you shouldn't insist on any terrain. So I think as long as you follow the guidelines in the Steamroller packet, and do realize that they are guidelines, so it's going to vary. I do think there should be some protective terrain near the middle of the table in most cases. Not every TO I've encountered has unequivocally agreed with that. So do try to prepare for that sort of thing. But I think there should be some terrain. I don't think it should always be forest. And in fact, when I play my games and I want to throw an LOS block in the middle of the table, I actually usually randomize between building cloud and so whatever it is, rolling fog or whatever the rules call it, and forest. Mostly because I don't want to always plan for that or not plan for that, and I think they all can really change up how the game is played pretty tremendously. Same with 2. I mean, I don't think it's reasonable to assume there'll be any number of forests. I played on a table with 4 of them at my last event, and I played on some tables with 0. So, and then we get a series of questions from Jason Zellum. The first one is, who's our worst caster and what needs to be done with them to make them better? This could almost be an entire show on its own. I'm going to go with Kaya 1. And what needs to be done to make her better, I'm honestly not entirely sure. So I really like Pack Hunters. It's a really strong spell. Soothing Song is obviously very strong. Spirit Door has some obvious strengths as well. Occultation is actually a pretty strong spell too. And what's her other one? Her new Spirit Fang, which is a range 10 power 12 model hit, suffers -2 speed and defense. And then her feat basically lets her fill up her fury again, and do some fury management. So she's not even necessarily terrible, right? Pack Hunter's making some of our living, I think it's living beasts, I'm not positive, making our beasts mat 8 and 9 is actually quite good. Like, Stalkers really like being 8. There's certainly a lot of, if you're going for an assassination, like going up to 9 or 11 with Primal is obviously very strong. Spirit Door is actually a really strong spell that people don't give credit for. Like, it's the only spell that lets you dig safely, completely deep with a pureblood, and to like scalpel pieces out and not worry about it dying. That a lot of people misunderstand this, but that does not work with Kaya 2 because her feat says at the end of your activation, and you don't get that trigger. You don't get that trigger if you fail a charge. Whereas with Kaya, it doesn't matter. It's you just bring a beast back. So you can get your 19-inch spray out there at kind of whatever you want to angle it at, and then you're just like, oh, I put my pureblood back. And you can also do that turn over turn over turn over turn, which is something Kaya can't do. She can do that with herself, but not with the battle group. Chromac 1 kind of can do that with Warpath, but not to the same level. Not now that there isn't Lightning Strike for everybody anyways. So what would I do? I'm not sure. She needs something that... So she wants to bring Beast, right? She's obviously efficient with them. It's like potentially a different feat might be good. Potentially an additional Field Marshal in addition to Pack Hunters, or maybe that rule getting a little bit better. The other problem is she herself wants to play pretty far forward and is pretty squishy, but also doesn't like bring anything really to the table herself. Like she's got a POW 10 or 11 stick. She's like a 16-14 caster. She is speed 7, that's nice, but she can't really personally contribute much. It's really hard for her to cast Spirit Fang in any meaningful way. Also because the speed and defense debuff is on a single model. So she's sort of like strapped for Fury every turn. Because you want to either cast 2 Spirit Doors or Spirit Door and a Soothing Song, and like in either case, you're not like if you do the latter, you probably have Occultation, so you're like camping 1 and you're a 16-14. And in the other case, you are camping 0 because you cast 2 Spirit Doors, unless it was your feet turn. Yeah. So I mean, at low points, she does great. In Mark 1, she was fantastic because she used to. She had a spell that actually lets you do a power attack before you made your initial attacks, and I don't know if that works with the rules now, but that would be a really cool spell to give her back, or something akin to it. Because now you can get more efficiency out of your beasts. I'm really trying to think of something that she could have that would really help circle out. I mean, there are a lot of things, but there's nothing that immediately jumps to mind. In general, it seems that the design space of Kaya is not that she is personally slinging out spells to deal with things like infantry models. So, like, I think the notion that she's supposed to have is she's supposed to help her beasts do damage, or to be effective, and yeah, I'm just not really sure what she needs to do that harder, and especially with us stepping on the toes of her other incarnations. More spells that help out her beasts, or some really strong like Field Marshal type things, or maybe some way that makes her spells more efficient. Like maybe she can cast a free Spirit Door every turn. That would certainly be a pretty big game changer. I'm trying to think, like Madrak 1 seems like a really similar example to like what sort of changes they need to do. I think the feat is probably where you look. I think she can afford to have a much stronger feat with that particular kit. And it would be great if she could just have something else that kept her safe. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe Free Animus would help, or yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure, but I do think it's Kaya 1. I would love to see her get a solid rework, like a la Madrak 1. I don't know that will happen, because I think there's a couple other casters that need some attention, and the next CID is likely to be pretty large as it is, but yeah. Next question, same individual. Would Warples be fixed if they were all 2 points cheaper? They also need to have Pathfinder, so let's assume you said 2 points cheaper and get Pathfinder. Yes. I think they would be fine at that point, with no other changes. I don't necessarily know that that's what I 100% would love to see. I don't think they will all be at 2 points cheaper. I think Pureblood will not change. I expect Loki will not change. but I could easily see, I think 17-point Stalkers are not crazy, 16-point Feral is not crazy, 19-point Getorix is not crazy. Again, I would actually rather Getorix stayed at 21 and got better, actually, like sort of like Mulg in how Mulg was treated in the Northkin theme, but you get the idea there. Pureblood I think is fine. It sprays good. It's in the battle box. I frankly don't think they're going to change it because of that. But yeah, I think that's going down the right path. And it doesn't necessarily need to be 2 points if they go another way. So next question, same individual. What are your best tricks with Warpborn Skinwalkers? I have not played a ton of them. I don't think they have a ton of tricks. I think there's really there's three things that come to mind with them. An armor buff is great on them if you can make sure you deliver them into melee, because now they become armor 20 while they're engaged. And they have 8 wounds, they heal themselves, and with Gang they're actually decently accurate. Power 14 because the Gang they actually hit okay hard. Vengeance with Grail, along with all the other things Grail does for Wolfsworn, I think is very strong for them. Just giving him up the table. Also, his feet keeps himself safe with stealth. I can't talk. Things like that. So I think that's one. The best trick is probably Morvana 2. If the officer of the unit, so the UA or CA, gets killed, destroyed, specifically not removed from play. If that model gets destroyed, when Morvana feats, you can put it back on the table in some pretty ridiculous places, along with some of the others. Actually, it doesn't matter if that one gets killed. You can put back a lot of Skinwalkers into really awkward places with her feet, and he can mini feat, which means that you can like stop charges and spells and a bunch of other stuff, because you can position them to all be within 3 inches. So that can get pretty interesting. I haven't actually played it, but that's the best trick I can come up with. Next one is, what needs to be done to Lord of the Feast so I'm not the only one playing him? He needs to be worth 6 points. He needs to go back to his rules he had in Mark II, perhaps, where he could Blood Reaper instead of Thresher. 2-inch melee would go a long ways. There are other things he could do, though, too, where maybe he has a certain like aura that helps support the army, or there are a lot of things Lord of the Feast could do. If he had more things, like if you look at someone like Volka from the Northkin theme, or Finn in Trenchers, and a few of those, and you look at the number of rules they have and the ways they have to get the effects out, that's the direction I would go with him. You can make him a Weapon Master. You could make those changes that I said. You could give him something like the Offering, which is like a once a game mini feat where he buffs the output of certain things. Theoretically, if you could boost range attacks on the Raven, again, that would actually also be helpful, but I kind of don't think that's going to be a change that they do. Can make it more survivable in some way, possibly. I mean, 12-17 with stealth, that's actually not bad, but he has to like go in to do work a lot of times. Having someone to put sprint on him would be a big deal, even at speed 5. That's something that really enabled me to use him in Mark II. Was a lot of times I actually would just like turn 2, I would use I put Lightning Strike on him. He'd Blood Reaper. He'd load himself up on corpses. He'd sprint back. And then that would, of course, then he could boost his range attack too. But that would mean later when he goes in, he's very powerful and whatnot. Those are some ideas. We'll see. I think he'll be in Tharn CAD. So next one is, would regrowth be too overpowered if it could bring back medium-based models too? What about large? I'm not sure. Bringing back Cav models sounds pretty crazy, and being able to bring these back turn over turn. They do only come back with 1 hitbox. That's not the change I would like to see to regrowth. I think it could be balanced for medium-based models. not as sure about large base models. I could also see. I think that spell's already complicated enough. But if it costs like 2 Fury to bring back something bigger than a small base, so that you can still bring them back, but not as effectively. Something like that might work. The change I actually want to see to regrowth is just that the models that come back are able to activate. Just because of how the timing works with when they come back, it's different than revive and the few other spells that do that. Most of the stuff that comes back during maintenance or like before turn activations usually can activate, and this is one exception that can't. So I'd like to see that change. I think large base, I have a little bit of trepidation. Being able to bring back Cav models is pretty crazy. Being able to bring back medium bases, we'll see. I don't expect to see that change, if I'm being totally honest, but I don't know that it's totally broken. Yeah. Why aren't Stoneward, next one is, why aren't Stoneward and Wold Soccer seeing the table? So, as with everything, we have to talk about what theme does it exist in, and in this case, it only exists in the Bones of Orboros. And then we have to talk about what it does for the points that you pay. The unit costs 10 points, which if you played in Mark II, you got they were 5 points. They literally just doubled it, like they did a lot of other things. And you used to play for 10 points, which was what most like sort of standard units cost with their attachment. A lot of times, you'd get 10 shots for 10 points, and that was pretty solid in the lists that wanted to play that. Notably, Baldur 1 in theme, Chromac 1 played them, Kruger 2 occasionally played them. Died off towards the end, but... so now they cost 10 points, which means for 20 points, you're getting 10 shots. And those shots are Rat 6, range 10, Pow 12. And then you can either Zephyr or do Concentrated Power. So Concentrated Power says for each other model that hit in the unit, the next one does 1 additional damage. So in theory, if you can hit 5 shots at Rat 6, you can go Pow. Let's see, what is it? First one's 12, then 13, 14, 15, and 16 at the end. That's pretty good, kinda. The problem is for 9 points, you can play Wold Weird, and he gets 3 Pow 12s at range 10, and the ability to boost, and the other bonuses that he gets. And so even if you're not getting those bonuses, you're still getting more, and it's just more survivable. Like, there are 12 15s with 1 box. And then on top of it, they're in bones, so they don't add to points, and what they do is not something the list really needs, right? You can bring, you've got a gun on the Wold Watcher, you've got a gun on the Wold Weird, you've got Sentry Stones, which are even more fantastic, and then you've got sprays from your solos and your caster and all those, and the Fulcrum is in there. And basically, what they do has not really shown to be needed to be done, which is unfortunate. It's a unit I kind of like. I think it either needs to just become cheaper or really just get another relook as to what it needs to do in this edition. But I don't think there's any like high. They were brought up during some of the Bones changes that we did have, and they opted not to make any changes to them. I'm a little surprised they're not part of Secret Masters, because it is a druid, but they're also like stone things. I hope they get a look at. Again, like I said, I think that unit could come down to like 7 points, honestly, given what it does, or they could get. There's a bunch of different ways that could go. Like maybe they do some utility when they hit. Maybe it's instead of them getting bonus, other things get a bonus. I'm not exactly sure. They're like a very standard ranged infantry unit that just isn't tuned very well right now, basically. And the last question from Facebook is Baldur the pirate captain Bartolo Montador hiding from the law, photo evidence, blah, blah, blah? I'm going to go with no. I don't know where Bartolo's from, but Baldur is probably significantly older and grew up in Kador, actually. And I presume Bartolo grew up on the sea. So, yeah. So those were the Facebook questions. I think I had one here on Discord. Oh, I have one, but it's actually a huge question. Or there's two questions here, so I'm going to do it out of order. Do you think there should be models out of themes so non-theme lists can have a chance versus themes, kind of like Buff Wolf can't be taken in any themes? No. So everything with game design comes down to decision making, and at this point, the designers have decided that in order to have the appropriate amount of counterplay, balance in the game, and design space to work within to make interesting new models, that they're using themes. Themes are in a lot of ways a soft rule for how to do composition, except for in Champions where you're forced into them. And what they do is allow for you to say, like, well, we can add this powerful, let's say, Tharn model or Wolfsworn model or whatever the case may be, because they really only synergize with these other models. And there might be some, like, quote, broken interaction outside of that theme, but A, people are unlikely to explore it, and B, even if they do, so let's say you're going to forego theme, you're now going to do so at a cost of probably no less than 8 points in your list, and maybe as many as 20 or something if it's one of the really fortuitous themes. So there is this crazy combo, but as long as it isn't like more than it doesn't exactly work out because of free cards. We've talked about this before, but like as long as it's worth like what the fact that you're giving up these 3 free solos or 2 free solos or 2 free command attachments or whatever, to do it, then it's probably fine, right? So like that's kind of the point where it's balanced, and you're also just encouraged so much to go into the theme that they want to do that. So they don't to do that. It doesn't make sense to promote not themes, right? You're promoting themes. It would be a very poor idea to suddenly turn around and say, well, we're supporting non-themes, especially given that there's a small subset of players who have still been very much on this mind track that themes are bad for the game and that they're limiting creativity. I disagree with that vehemently. We could have a whole episode about that later. But as a company, you don't want to stir that controversy up, and you don't want to push people in the way of not themes. So it doesn't make sense to release something that doesn't have a home at this point. In fact, I would argue that a lot of character models, like Loki, for example, throughout the game, and then in other factions, there's a lot of examples of this as well, that don't have a theme that they can call home explicitly, really should, because I think that there's a lot of those are just not being utilized to their full potential as a result of that. And finally, the same person asked, best unit, best beast, best scenario caster, best assassination caster, best attrition caster. I went over earlier how I don't really like doing bests, so I really don't even know how I want to answer this question. Yeah, this is a tough one for me because I don't see the world in like this thing is the best and therefore it works. To me it's an overall, like, I'm able to use this composition of things very well. So yeah, I really don't know how I want to approach answering this question. Let me look at the casters real quick that you mentioned. Best scenario caster is absolutely Kruger 2. Like, if we're talking purely scenario. Best assassination caster is insanely difficult to choose. I don't really feel like we have anybody who's super strong at it. I mean, to a degree, that could be Kruger, that could be Chromac 1, that could be Wormwood sometimes, that could be Una 2 sometimes. That could be Kaya 2 sometimes, and it could be Mosar sometimes. As far as attrition, that one's tougher. I mean, to a degree, it's Baldur 2. To a degree, it can be Bradius. to a degree. Chromic 2, Kaya 2, Una 2. Oh, sorry, I meant Kaya 3. Although Kaya 2 can do it too. I mean, frankly, any list you build should have some play into attrition, so that's a really tough question to answer as well. And then best beast and best unit. Shifting Sons are probably still the best unit. If you learn how to play them well, you're going to really excel in the faction. They do a lot of things, and they're very good at it. Best beast. All of them. I don't know. That one's tough. Most of the character beasts I think are very solid, with the exception of Brenos, who's good but needs some work. Scarcell's Griffins are quite good. All the wolves are actually in a really good place right now. Loki is actually very good. We just can't play him. So, anyways, that's the best I'm going to be able to do with that one. So, I don't think I missed anything. Anyways, this has been fun. So we'll do more lightning round questions some other time. I'll try to post. If I can get enough questions on a regular basis, I would do this as often. As often as every week or two. Because it's sort of a fun, easy show to do. So, anyways, so look for the next post on that. If you want to discuss any of my answers here, please do. Or this may turn into some longer episodes later. Anyways, as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you.